February 15th. Okay. Okay, so I do not see this on Facebook. Yeah. And there we are. Yep. Bring the volume up where? I hear myself really well. Bring the volume up. On the laptop? Really? Yeah. Oh, well, speakers are on 100%. Yeah. That's interesting. Okay, music. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, testing, 1, 2, 3, testing, 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 testing. I just heard me. A lot of surface noise? Sure. Very good. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's 8 o'clock on Thursday night, and that can only mean one thing. It's time for the 28th installment of the Age Out Angels Radio Hour. My name is Greg Rapport. I am the founder and executive director of Age Out Angels. We are a 501c3 nonprofit corporation that provides one-to-one mentors to youth who are in need. This program is brought to you every week at this same time, courtesy of Doc G and the fine people here at Hamilton Radio who allow us to use this airtime. Doc G is on the big board tonight, and we welcome him, and we welcome all of you. Today's broadcast is sort of a continuation of our experiment as we're taping the show in advance of broadcast. This was taped on February 22nd, but this is actually the first time it's appearing on the air. And I have a very interesting guest tonight who really goes above and beyond the call of duty when it comes to helping young people in need. And his name is Mark Wilcox, and his organization is called Covenant House. If you live in New Jersey, you may have heard of it, but it exists, I think, in about 30 states across the country as well. So we'll get to Mr. Wilcox in just a minute when he calls in after a few announcements. No call-ins tonight, please. But what you can do is you can place comments in the comments field at my Facebook page or at www.hamiltonradio.net. Now, if this works, I'll be able to monitor this show from a remote location, and I'll be able to respond to your comments in real time. So don't hold back. Let's have a conversation while the show's going on. Pre-recorded shows will air tonight and also next week, March 22nd, and we'll be back live on March 29th. So with that in mind, time to share. Take a moment. Please tell your friends to tune into this program right now, so we can spread the word about child welfare. I mean, that's what it's all about. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about the children. And internet radio is the future, and we can take advantage of it right here in the present. You know, technology moves so quickly that I wonder if it will take as many as 5 years for internet broadcasts to really proliferate the entire globe. And think of what that will do for our dialogue exchange. We'll be able to get opinions when it comes to child welfare, not just opinions, but best practices from all around the world. And we'll be able to get that from real workers in real time. So the prospect of this opportunity that we're sort of right in the beginning of is just so excited to me, because what it does for an organization like Age Out Angels is it empowers us to develop mentoring services for youth anywhere. But the one thing that we need is your help to spread the word, because this is wholly dependent on people like you caring enough to want to spread the word via social media. Now, if you think about all the reasons people use social media, you know, to show pictures of their baked goods, or to espouse their political opinions, or to just, you know, stay connected with old friends from 8th grade. If we work together, we can use social media to improve the lives of children. And it actually requires very little effort to do that. So please consider yourselves all deputies in the Child Welfare Army. Remember, over 400,000 youth in the foster care system, 20,000 age out every year, plus another 3 million youth who are homeless, and even more who live in poverty. It's a big job. We can't do it without your help to spread the word, so do it right now. Hit that share button on Facebook and tell your friends to share with their friends, and tell them to tell their friends to share with their friends, and on and on and on down the line. And if you do that, we'll develop mentors on a national scale. So please do it right now. Share this with your friends. Let's get the ball rolling. And while you're doing that, I'd like to remind everyone that our theme music comes to us as a courtesy from Kurt Seldemridge, operator of the Cave Rehearsal Recording Space in Pennsylvania. If you have recording or rehearsal needs, you can get in touch with Kurt by emailing to thecave1876@gmail.com. And I'd also like to give a shout out to Marty Light, who graciously donated his time to play sweet, sweet, sweet bass guitar on that track. Again, no call-ins to this pre-recorded broadcast, but feel free to write your comments and questions into Facebook. Tell me your thoughts on any of the subjects we discussed tonight. Also, you know what you can do while this show is going on? You can email to me directly during the show, and my email address is greg@ageoutangels.org. Again, that is greg@ageoutangels.org, and I'll be able to respond to you immediately tonight. So if this works, you know, that would then be the cool thing about a pre-recorded show. We'll be watching the show together, you and I, and then we can have dialogue about it while it's happening. So what do you say? Let's have some fun together tonight. Okay, so we've been talking for previous weeks about using smartphones for educational purposes instead of just for social media and entertainment, and ways to incorporate smartphones into the classroom. So the goal here is to stop teaching children that we view smartphones as the enemy, because that's what we're doing. Basically what we do now is we use smartphones and we set up a kind of us versus them mentality. And that alone undermines the education process. And I'll tell you how it does it. Because I know from personal experience that I was the kind of student that if I was growing up now and you told me I couldn't have a smartphone in class, I would devote an unconscionable amount of effort to figure out ways to beat you at that game. When I was in college, I actually learned that there's a definition for that. It's called secondary socialization, and it's where you learn the rules of the society and then you figure out how to skirt by them. It doesn't mean you're illegal. It just means you're getting around them. And so I'm telling you that if I was a teenager today, I would be laying awake at nights figuring out how to use my smartphone in class. Is it dumb? Would that be immature? Would that be stupid? Yes, of course. But nonetheless, I'm just being realistic. This is how the teenage mind thinks. So last week, I mentioned an article from the NEA, the National Education Association, that indicated to me that this is something on the minds of the big think tank, and just seeing this article made me feel good, because I figured with my point of view, I was pretty much alone on an island. And here's the National Education Association coming in and having the same thoughts that I am. So they published an article by a teacher by the name of Ken Halla. And he is a 22-year-old teaching veteran, has spent the last 5 years working to transition his ninth grade world history and AP government classrooms into mobile, device-friendly environments where students can incorporate the latest technology into the learning process. Now, Mr. Halla has tips for using mobile devices effectively in the classroom, and I'd like to tell them to you. And you could write to me with your thoughts on the subject. Remember, this is coming from a practicing educator, not a theorist sitting alone in a vacuum. And his tip number one is ensuring that it stays academic. Many teachers have a zero-tolerance policy when it comes to phones being out during class, since they assume, and most of the time they assume correctly, that their students are using smartphones to text friends or update their various social media sites. But there's actually a simple way to ensure that students use devices for educational purposes. And that, according to Mr. Halla, is to change the classroom dynamic from lecturing at the front of the room to having no traditional front of the classroom at all. So during class, Mr. Halla roams around the room, helping students with their work. All the while, though, he's keeping a sharp eye out over everything to make sure that his students are staying on task. And his quote here is that it's harder to do the negative behaviors when the phones are out and the teacher is walking around. His tip number two, according to Mr. Halla, is finding the right apps. And it turns out there are actually a lot of them. For example, a great app for keeping students on top of their work is called Remind 101. Students voluntarily sign up to receive a text reminder when they have an upcoming assignment due. Not only does it help students better organize their assignments, but it's also engaging for parents. Halla says how many parents sign up for the app to keep track of their children's homework. And he quotes here, "I was stunned by how many more kids started doing their homework," he says. "I just thought they didn't want to do the work, but it was more that they were unorganized and had forgotten to do it." Tip number three, online resources. Aside from the education-friendly apps now available, Halla has found online resources that can help support classroom productivity and can be easily accessed via smartphone. And so he recommends a couple of online resources. One is called polleverywhere.com, polleverywhere, polleverywhere.com, to test students' knowledge of their subject material before an upcoming test. This is a teacher who's like really involved, you can tell. Teachers can set up a question or questions based on what students are currently learning in class, and then provide them with a text number. Students see the question with several potential answers, multiple choice, you know, like A, B, C, or D. And then they'll text in the answer. As the students' answers are compiled, the site creates a graph showing their responses. polleverywhere.com also costs nothing to use for a survey of 40 or fewer participants. And Haller says it's a good way to see how the students are comprehending the material. For example, if a lot of students are picking option C and B is really the answer, then he can go back and review the material again. Tip number four, apps for the social sciences. Haller recommends a number of apps that are perfect for teaching social science courses. There's WorldWiki, an app that provides demographic information for almost 250 countries around the world. iAmerica, an app with information about each U.S. president and the history of the White House. U.S. Constitution, so students can have easy access to one of the most important American documents, and many others that are designed to provide students with further classroom support. I want, you know, it'd be so easy to have a copy of the U.S. Constitution on your smartphone. I used to actually walk around with one. I did it for years, a little It was like a little pamphlet. It's really not all that long. The Constitution and all of its and the Bill of Rights and all of its amendments. It's just not that. It's not like a tome or a volume that you'd be walking around with. And I haven't walked around with it for a while, but it seems like so easy to get it right on your smartphone. Tip number 5. Oh, this is real important. Find out if an app is approved. He's actually created a list of some of the most useful apps that he's found in the classroom, and those are available on the gentleman's blog. But while not all apps are available on Android devices, a large majority of them can be accessed on iPhones, iPads, and iPods. But before implementing smartphones or iPads into your own classroom, and I see we have a caller coming in, make sure that they're approved by the school district and the school. Doc G, do we have a caller on the line?
Yes, how you doing? This is Mark from the Covenant House Outreach Team.
Mark Wilcox from Covenant House. Welcome to the Age Out Angels Radio Hour, Mark.
Thank you, thank you. How you doing?
It's good to have you here. Now, let me just, in the way of introduction, Mark, let me just tell the listeners at home, millions of kids suffer on the streets every day. For over 40 years, Covenant House has sheltered and cared for these young people. Now stands as a powerful human rights movement for homeless and trafficked youth in 31 cities across 6 countries. My guest on the line, Mark Wilcox, is outreach liaison for Covenant House, New Jersey. As such, he is in the front line of working with youth who are homeless and frequently in need of transportation to even get to one of the Covenant House facilities. And he's my guest tonight. Mark, welcome once again to the Age Out Angels Radio Hour. It's good to have you here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Now, let's get right to it. Now, I saw Covenant House billed online as being more than just a shelter. Can you explain a little bit about that to us? Like, what's the difference between a typical, say, shelter and Covenant House?
Yes. Well, shelter definitely has stigmas associated with it, and I want to say that most shelters they're not program based like the Covenant House.
Right.
So they just provide you pretty much like the essentials, sleeping quarters. Usually, if you're on the floor next to or a cot, usually cot in a pot, I always say. But that's kind of like your typical environment. You'll have food, but you have to leave out, and once you leave out of the shelter, you have to return at a certain time. Whereas with the Covenant House, we're more of a program-based, holistic approach in order to help and assist all youth who come through those doors. So with that being said, we provide a lot of great services, very structured environment, so that the youth are able to get back on track. They lost their way in life, so now they're able to steer a course of positivity.
Get their footing.
We treat every youth with unconditional love and respect, and
help them get their footing.
Are there to help assist.
Yeah. Okay. So I just want to back up for 1 second there, because I think this is a pretty stark difference between what a shelter is and what Covenant House actually is. So if I'm painting this picture, if I think of a shelter, am I thinking of like a large area, like gymnasium type area with cots in it? Is that kind of what a typical shelter sort of looks like, or an auditorium?
In a general sense, I want to say it does. I know a few that have they accommodate like almost a huge room size where there's like bunk bed, and it's like a bunk bed. You have your bed, and then you have the bed up top, and then all the members, all the people, they all sleep in that same quarters. Sure. Pretty much, and for the most part. Of course, it's separated. Like if you have shelters that accommodate both men and women, then it's definitely going to be, separated by rooms in that regard. But for the most part, it's all pretty much put together. Whereas here at the Covenant House, it's they have their own individual room, but there's 5 beds to a room, and they're not like bunk beds. They're all spread out, 5 beds each. In a
shelter, in a typical shelter, don't you have to take all of your stuff out with you every day when you leave?
Yes.
Yeah, you can't you can't nest, right? You can't.
Yeah.
You can't feel like you live there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's pretty much like you have to go and then carrying all your belongings with you. You're loaded down, and then you got to figure out how to be able to transport it and carry them with you, and then when you return, yeah.
So basically, if you're a shelter dweller, your whole life is your backpack. Every possession you own, everything you have, that's your backpack. You're carrying that around with you. And
Correct.
and in
Yep.
in Covenant House, you might be able to, I don't know, have your guitar or something, just something that could stay there during the day, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We
Okay.
provide them with they have their own lock cabinet closet that they're able to store their personal effects, belongings in there, and as well they have their nightstand, and so they're able to keep everything there.
Okay.
Again, it's a program-based system, so that they live there, they go through the program, this structured environment where there's implemented strategies and goals, plans
Sure,
that
sure.
the youth are able to achieve and obtain.
And we'll talk
So
about
the,
we'll
the
talk
staff-
more about we're going to
yeah.
talk more about those programming in just a minute. But if I understand correctly, one of the hallmarks of Covenant House is that if a youth is homeless, you try to never turn them away from entry into one of your locations. Is that correct?
Yes, that is absolutely correct. Each youth that comes through those doors, we'll meet him with the immediate attention, food, clothing. If they need the shelter, then we'll provide that. And if we are at max capacity, in many cases we are, especially wintertime, then we'll look into other options as far as exploring the Atlantic City site, which is another residential program that I always like to, present to any youth that I encounter, that if they're not able to come to Newark because of that, the max capacity, then we'll get them over to Atlantic City and coordinate that.
So all right. So let's talk more about Covenant House in a few minutes. I want to tell our listeners a little bit more about you personally. What's your background, Mark? How did you get into this mess?
Well, I was born and raised in Newark, and I pretty much came up in poverty, my own issues with my parents, my mother being heavily addicted to regular, like, over-the-counter prescription medications, pain pills, nerve pills, and, so it was really rough for me and for the family, very dysfunctional in that way. Father was never there, never around. He passed, actually, when I was very young, so my mother had to do it all on her own, and she had her own issues and demons that she had to face. So when taking the pills, the drugs that she was involved in, it would change her personality. She used to take it out on us. It was me and my sister, and so we were very neglected. And then I became a ward of the state very early, at a very early age, meaning that the Division of Youth and Family Services, they intervened. They used to take us away from her. Like, it would be on and off, So she'd have her thing, and then she'd go and to detox and prove to them that she's capable, and then she's ready to have us back, and we go back to her. Still the same mess, same thing. And they take us right back, put us in another foster home. So I've been bounced around quite often throughout my early childhood, up to about, I want to say, 12, 13, and then, just being a part of in Newark, in the streets. I was never, like, out there hardcore, running around, like, in the streets, but I was influenced by certain parties and people I used to surround myself with. So, I would try to separate myself away from there, and there were people that were part of my life that noticed that. And that's when I really, truly understood people are caring, they're kind, and they wanted to help. So I got help by another nonprofit organization that helped put me through high school. And then from high school, I was able to get to college, and I graduated first in my family to complete, and graduated with a BA in sociology. So I was very thankful and humbled by it. And that's me. That's my life in a nutshell.
My friend, it sounds like you've had, like, the full-on experience to qualify for the work that you do. You've lived it, man. And it's so nice to see someone who has lived the hard way, sort of be able to come out the other end. And was there a moment in time when you realized that? Because it seems now after you've explained this to me, it seems that what you do now is a big, giant give back.
Yeah, it is, but I look at it more bigger than that. From a larger scope, I see it as just me doing what's needed. You know, I think that this line of work is so necessary, and it humbles me to just have this opportunity to connect to lives and to connect to individuals within our communities, from the leaders of the communities, other anchor program stakeholders that I partnership with, but just primarily our youth that I connect to and I see, you know, or I speak to on a daily basis, to let them know, like, it doesn't always have to be this way. You know, you have to break the cycle. I was once there. I walked that life. I get what it is to be homeless to an extent. I understand that, you know, it's rough, and it's not an easy walk. And but I let them know. I encourage them with positivity always. Like, you know, you could always turn it around. You could change. You could definitely make it. You could change it all around for the greater good, and come out to be productive citizens, working, educated, go back to school, get your GED, go back to college, to be educated, to be more informed and conscious. So I always try to always pushing out love and positivity. You know, just that's a must.
Yeah.
So I let them know if I could do it, so can you.
Sure.
That's one of my main things I say is, you know I did it, I could do it, you can do it.
Yeah,
there's no reason why not.
I'm sure they understand that you're not just talking the talk, you've actually walked the walk. So, you know, that should get a lot of respect in those circles. So in New Jersey, Covenant House has, is it 5 locations in New Jersey? Clarify this for me. Camden, Newark, Atlantic City, Jersey City, and Asbury Park, is that?
Yes, so we have our programs. The main residential programs that we have, community service programs, are the one in Newark, which is 330 Washington Street, where I work out of, and then we have the other is the Atlantic City site, which is another residential program that we house youth there, and it's more of a dormitory environment. Where Newark is 45 beds, 20 females that we house there, and we house 20 males. In Atlantic City, we hold houses 27 beds for our youth there. Again, 18 to 21, they age out at 22. We also have the transitional living component. So from that point, they can go into what's called rites of passage. At that point, they're like halfway, you could say close towards independence.
Right. But we're gonna talk about that on the other side of the break. So I want you to hold on to that thought, okay?
Okay.
Because first, I want to set the stage for you to define, like, what your job actually is. Because what I know of your job is, I have a kid who's in trouble, right? Who has no place to live, and then I call you, and then you magically find a bed, and then you magically somehow manage to appear and make them transported there. So what I see of you is just all the magic. What do you do when you go to work in the morning? What's your routine for work?
Yeah, so you pretty much hit it on the nail on the head there. I mean, plainly, that's what outreaching is, and what I do is I connect the youth to our services and present it to them. I lay it all out on the table, tell them, you know, about the program, the services, how we can assist them in that, and the expectations and the structure and everything. But I think more deeply than that, you know, I always look at it as a symbolic, in a symbolic way of, like, me being a farmer, tilling the land and planting seeds of unconditional love, hope, and opportunity. Because quite literally, that's what I'm doing. I go into the communities, you know, the school presentations, going into the meetings, raising awareness is the key element, and then by doing that, I'm planting these seeds.
So that's what you're spending a good part of your day doing, is interacting, communicating, going wherever you can to sort of spread the word.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, and then also, though, you make time to work with individual youth as they enter the system?
Correct. So once I do identify a youth, or youth reaches out to me, or there's another leader or adult or anybody within our communities that are needing of help with their kids, with their youth, then they'll contact me, and then I'll talk to that youth over the phone. So basically, I'm building rapport, you know. A lot of youth, most of the times, they're going to have their guards up, you know, because they don't know me. I'm a stranger to them, you know, new face. So they're already like defensive, in a defensive mode, in a sense. So, just by talking to them and letting them know about us and how we want to assist and how we can help them, that, I think, kind of, it breaks the ice, but also it helps to generate a level of trust between the two. And eventually, a lot of youth, they'll come around and say, hey, some of them are like right there on the spot. I need this. I need the help.
Let me ask. I have to ask you this: when you have that sort of initial phone call or face-to-face, whatever it happens to be, with a young person who clearly doesn't trust you just because they don't know you. When you're having that, do you come out early on in that conversation and let them know that you were once part of the system and homeless and all that stuff yourself? Do you tell them that? Do you reveal that about yourself in the first meeting?
It depends, but sometimes, not all the time. Because again, it's rapport, and depending on the communication or the conversation. Some youth, they're again, not as readily able, or they're not just readily able to decide that this is what I want, this is what I need, because we are a choice program. It's not, can't be forced into Covenant House. It's not lock and key. Again, it's not a shelter. You come in, you choose. This is the youth deciding, this is what I want. So they commit to it at that point. So as I'm talking to them, I'll let them know like who I am, and I will share that with them, because I feel the stories are definite testimony to true character, and each one of us have our own story to tell. So that, in a sense, I think to me is an inspiration to others. So when I let them know, hey, I've been through X, Y, and Z, and I understand it's hard. You're nervous right now, and things are frustrating and everything, but it's always going to get better as long as you put that out and you put it out there that way. You gotta believe it. You gotta perceive it. You gotta believe it, and things will change for the greater good.
Absolutely.
So I let them know.
Absolutely. Listen, we're gonna take a short break here. Don't go away, Mark. I want you to stay on the line. We're gonna give our listeners a chance to share this broadcast with their friends on Facebook, and when we come back, we're gonna talk more now about the outreach programs. Okay? Back in a minute.
All right. Okay.
And we're back, and I need to remind everyone about the Princeton Elks Charitable Trust. The Princeton Elks Charitable Trust provides funds for worthy individuals, organizations, and veterans. If you think you have a worthy cause, you should call the president of the trust to find out if you qualify. His name is Stuart Malakov, and his phone number is 609-933-7085, and do that right away. I also want to send a shout-out thank you to the people who made donations to Age Out Angels this week. We thank you so kindly for your donation. And remember, not just during the holidays, but every time you make a purchase from Amazon, you could be making a donation to Age Out Angels without spending a penny more. You heard correctly. It doesn't cost money. When you go to Amazon, there's a pop-up that offers you a chance to go to Amazon Smile. Well, if you make your purchase through Amazon Smile, you can designate Age Out Angels as your donation organization. And without it costing you more, a portion of your purchase will go to help children who need it the most. If you want to friend me on Facebook, I can send you a link that will take you directly there and save you a few clicks. So, back with my guest, Mark. I hope you're still on the line.
Yes, I'm here.
All right. So South Jersey programs. I'm looking at some information here about a residential crisis center in Atlantic City.
Yes.
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so they have the residential programming that's based in Atlantic City, just like our Covenant House here in Newark. They provide services of free medical, clinical, legal assistance, a lawyer on site for that. We help youth obtain GED when they don't have the diplomas, as well as a job training vocation department so that they're able to assist the youth in becoming employed. Because at the end of the day, you're working, you're saving your money, you're able to use that as a stepping stone so you can get to the next level, which at that point would be considered our transitional living opportunities. that they also have in Atlantic City. They have an ROP there, Rites of Passage, and our youth that are at the Rites of Passage point, at that point in the program is they're working, so they're still saving their money, and all that, and their money goes to their savings, as well as their budgeting, and they're going to school. They come back, you know, they have their own room once they're at the Rites of Passage program. They just share the kitchen and the common area, and that program is staffed 24/7 as well.
And is that Atlantic City and Newark only, or does that program exist in the other sites as well?
Yes, so this is the great news, is that those Newark and Atlantic City were the only two locations for the Rites of Passage. However, we just recently opened up a new transitional living ROP in Asbury Park. That just happened, we just opened last Monday. So we we have 5 beds for 5 males that we're currently housing right now, fully staffed, and that's like one of the huge, and it was built from the ground up, by the way.
Okay, so
that was an effort that was built from the ground up, a brand new facility.
So
for our youth.
When I send someone to you, they go into one of the residential crisis centers, and it says here that, and they've actually told me this, that they get a nice friendly welcome, they get food. I'll bet they all come in the door hungry, right? And I'm assuming they all come in the door needing a shower. It says here they get a fresh set of clothes. You make clothing available to them?
Yes, we have a boutique room, so there's clothes that we have there set up for both our male and female youth that are in need. So some of them, because some of them only come in with like a backpack or just one bag, and there's others that come in with just the clothes on their back. So of course, we need to have something there at the ready so that they're able to, just be more comfortable. And when they move in, again, they eat, they have their food, they shower, and then they're able to, just get involved, back in, to the program.
Yeah, I remember the first night I was checking on somebody that the first guy I sent over there, and I got a text back from him that just said, "Yes, I'm here. I'm doing my laundry now." And I thought, all right,
yeah,
he's safe. He's off the streets. Like, the previous night I was getting texts from him in Albany, New York, saying, "I'm out in the rain." Poor kid.
Oh.
And he came to you heavily loaded, because he was actually, he ended up being homeless because when his parents found out that he was transgender, they wouldn't let him come home after a semester of college. So he had his PlayStation, and he had all the stuff you'd have in a college dorm. When he came to the door. And of course, coming out of a middle-class household and coming out of a college situation to being suddenly homeless, this kid had no street skills at all. There was no way he would have survived, on the streets.
Yeah.
I mean, I was so glad that you guys were there and able to do that. So, all right. So I want to delve into this a little more analytically. So now, because they sort of, encouraged him not to just have a place to stay, but to really get his life on track. And that involved working and saving money. And so did he get his job on his own, or did he get it through Covenant House? Do they have arrangements with employers in the area?
It's usually that our Covenant House, they have, or it's already arranged for the most part. Some youth already come in like job seeking, so they do go out on their own. They take their own initiatives to be able to become employed, because they know the importance of it. So some of them do come in with the jobs, but others, when they in our departments, they're going, after they leave their floors in the morning to come down for program, they're going into the prospective programs, GED, job training, vocation, in different little places. So but the staff there will work with them, send them out job seeking. They do the resume building, mock interview skills, and everything. Providing them all the tools they can use to benefit by in order to find a job. So, but other ones are referral in-house. So we'll send them out to different employers that we have a trust relationship with.
And was there a deal like they bring their checks back to you and you create an escrow sort of savings plan for them? How did that work?
Yes, the budgeting is 90% here at our residential site. At the programs like the one in Newark and Atlantic City, so it's 90% of their income. So whatever they make, it goes into their Covenant House savings. That 90%, and the 10% remainder is their pocket money.
You know, I have to tell you that I think that is so wonderfully simple and smart that I actually started teaching it to my own children. I thought, what a perfect approach to life, right? If you take 10% of what you make, and that's your blow it on anything you want money. You know, you can spend that on anything you want, but 90% goes to your needs, and if you have anything left over after that 90%, that's your savings.
Yeah.
You know, and then 10% is go raise as much fun as you want. And if 10% isn't enough, well, then earn more money. It's a real simple equation.
Yeah.
Did I hear, though, the first week they don't take the whole 90%? They let you have 50% the first week. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, that I'm not sure of.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
I think that's what a young
Yeah.
man, told me at one point. They said the first week they just let you slide a little bit because you probably didn't even work a full week, at that point.
Yeah,
So,
it sounds like that makes sense. But I do know, like, once they transition on, and like for those that want to go into our Rites of Passage program, so there it's actually 50%. So 50% income, and the other 50 goes into their continues to accumulate into their Covenant House savings account.
right.
So because at the RLP, once you're at that point, you're budgeting, but you're buying your own food too, because they have a kitchen. So they're able to cook and everything. And then you have, from that transitional living component, you can move into independent living, which we have. It's called supportive assisted living. And those apartments, Upper Montclair and Newark, and then they have also ones in Atlantic City where the youth have their own apartment. And the rent is only 30% of their income. So they live there. It's minimally supervised, because at that point they demonstrated they already have what it takes. They're more productive, they're more responsible, and they're doing good. They're doing good, and now they're in their own apartments.
So the rites of passage, right? Says here it's a 12 to 18 month transitional living program. At what happens to them at 21? When they turn 21, they have to go?
Well, yeah, so at not 21, and actually when they turn, the day they turn 22 is when they age out from the Covenant House.
Uh-huh.
But again, by that point in time, the end in mind is that they're all into, independent living, or, if that's what they choose. And some of them, they don't even go that route. If they want to apply for a subsidized voucher, then we can help them with that. One of our rapid rehousing that we also, our independent living staff are specialized in. I can't really say too much about it because that's not my field, but I know that our staff there, they're able to work with youth in that are interested in wanting to do that, and they just go out on their own, But we'll still help them and assist them in the whole process. And once they're settled in, we'll still keep a line with them and say, hey, is everything okay? How's the apartment going? And you need anything? You need pots, pans, some furniture? They'll try to help them or assist them on a path of process so that they can get, they can be comfortable.
Right. So it's when they age out from Covenant House, it sounds more like a graduation than a kick in the butt, right?
Yeah, it's definitely more of a graduation, and they transition into a better place. So versus being at where they were at before they even walked through the Covenant House doors. Right. So we try to have that that transition for them so that they can not be homeless but be productive. They're working, they're going to school now, they're either living on campus or there's so many different successful scenarios that our youth demonstrated that they can achieve. Just through the sheer strength and resiliency. These youth are phenomenal. And that's another reason why I love doing what I'm doing and being connected to this whole mission with Covenant House. is just the sheer admiration I have for these youth. They're just incredible.
What they withstand, it just boggles my mind. What they've gone through in their lives, and when they come out at the other end, it amazes me. Now there's this Camden. There's a Camden drop-in center, and it says here. It says here we don't wait for the kids to come to us. We go where they are.
Yeah.
So the outreach staff actually sort of disperses out into the community and looks for kids who are homeless.
Yes, correct. And that's a part of what I do as well. You know, being an outreach liaison, street outreach is definitely key to it all. So, you know, through those community service centers is what, you know, they're actually called. Drop-in centers seem to be a little, just the whole drop-in aspect is just not a good way to say it.
Okay.
So we have the one in Camden, then we also have one in Asbury Park and in Jersey City as well for Hudson County. So we have those community service sites, and our outreach teams in Jersey City, Asbury Park, I'm on that team as well. But we'll actively go out to the communities and, you know, talk to people on the corner, you know, group of kids standing at the corner store at the near the basketball courts. If we see somebody sitting on an abandoned, like on a porch of an abandoned building, which is, you know, I've had those encounters, then, you know, we'll just be bold and courageous enough to say, hey, you know, is everything okay? Have you heard of Covenant House? And then, you know, I just talk to them, engage them, and give them information. And if they're youth that's within age that we could assist, then by all means, you know, that's where we started that whole rapport, that relationship, and planting the seed. And then from that point, it grows. Yeah.
It's really quite remarkable what the potential is in things like this. So I mean, what we're talking about here are like three core programs, right? There's outreach, and there's crisis centers, and supportive housing.
Yes.
And I, you know, if people have been listening from the beginning of the show, where we were defining the difference between a shelter and Covenant House, I think you've made the point very clearly for how this is, you know, this is sort of way more than a shelter. This is something for actually transforming lives. Now when we're talking about supportive housing, and you mentioned Montclair, is that what I've learned is called like Nancy's Place and Raphael's Lifehouse? Is that what those are?
So yeah, those are two of the different dynamics of that component. Where the Raphael Lifehouse is our mothers and babies program. So any mother that's pregnant or her child is under the age of 1, they're able to stay at the Raphael Lifehouse, and we take care of them, and they you know, they practice mother skills and just the whole employment opportunity, job training, and they still have all the ability to receive all our services through Covenant House, medical, clinical, legal, and everything else. And they live there. The baby's crib is in the same room, and they're working mothers. They go to school. They come back. They cook their food. They live, you know, so it's a very whole program, comprehensive program for our mothers and babies. And then for Nancy's Place, that's the program in Upper Montclair. So that place is more specialized in helping and treating and assisting all our youth who are struggling with mental illness.
Ah, the mental illness component, very important.
Yes.
Do you see that a lot?
Yes.
Do you see that a lot?
Yeah, definitely. And I want to say, you know, majority of youth that come through our doors are affected or afflicted in some way, some more than others, and because of mental health, because of the terrorism. You got to imagine, you just can only imagine, like, the terrorism, the trauma that they've been exposed to on a daily basis, having to live out in the streets, fend for themselves, trying to survive, you know, looking over their shoulders all the time, and you know, just through sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional. All these things impact our youth, and they become so damaged that, you know, they hurt by it, and a lot of them they become homeless because of that. So they come through our doors, you know, the youth that we assist will help them out to, you know, heal their wounds. And then our Nancy's Place program, again, it's more of a specialized program so that they could really stabilize They could be really more stabilized and become a lot more stronger than when they went in. So, and in a Nancy's Place program, we house up to 8 youth there, and they have medical, clinical. They have all the benefits, receive all the services, because again, it's Covenant House. It's just another branch off of the main trunk, which is the Covenant House.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for our listeners at home, the kind of trauma that Mark is talking about, I think it's the most succinct way to describe it is the way a soldier comes back from war with PTSD. Was you okay with that definition, Mark? That happens a lot. They've been the youth have been so traumatized, like over and over again. They call it complex trauma, without any healing, right? Without ever an opportunity to sort of get right. I mean,
without any positive intervention,
and so then what happens is that trauma builds up over the years and renders them unable to get past that and be able to focus on doing well in school and looking past beyond school to a life working in a corporate office somewhere. They can't envision all that stuff. They're just blocked. They're just blocked. And we have this discussion actually a lot of the nature versus nurture thing, I mean, some people are just naturally mentally ill. It's a chemical thing or a genetic thing and, runs in their family and they're whatever they are. They're bipolar or they're, oppositional defiance disorder, where there's a million things like that. But then there's this whole group that you and I deal with all the time, Mark, who really don't necessarily have to have a mental illness, but their environment has given it to them, and some kids, you're probably a great example of somebody who suffered that same kind of trauma and got through it, came out the other end. So do they have like sort of like group therapy and individual therapy and all that kind of stuff at Nancy's Place?
Yes, they do. So we do offer our youth that come to our program. They do go through. They have horse therapy. So they have various therapies for different youth. Again, because we try to meet the youth where their we try to meet the needs. No, we try to meet the youth where their needs are at. So if that youth needs this particular specialized care and something, then they'll coordinate it, and we offer everything in-house as well, in services. But if it's something that needs to be addressed outside, then they'll refer that youth outside to get, that particular care, just to help, in the overall recourse of, they could be more stabilized or, just to be in a better space.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Mark, I just want to tell you it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I mean, you and I have spoken before, not on the radio, but we never actually had a chance to talk and find out more about you personally. And I know that Covenant House has been a tremendous help and partner to the kids who access Age Out Angels. And I'm so glad that we had a chance to talk about this together. And I hope you'll think about being a guest on our show again. Maybe next time come on the show and tell us about some individual kids. Don't use their real names, but tell us stories about, some of the individual kids that you've seen, sort of go through the system, ones who have made it and ones who haven't,
Absolutely.
And I think we'd like to hear more about that. So I'm going to let you go, sir. And I thank you so much for calling in. You have a wonderful afternoon.
And if I can say really quickly, because I know it's kind of cliche, but I always say it's so true to it. I stand so true to this, that it definitely takes a village to raise a child, to raise our youth, to raise each other up as a community, as a social whole, to be better, to be stronger. So, and I appreciate you, sir, so much, because you're part of that village. You're an individual in the village that's a part of necessitating this positivity and, bringing about great change and affecting people's lives. So I just want to thank you for that, for the youth that you've referred over to me as well, because you helped make a tremendous difference, I know, in their lives also. So, thank you. And again, welcome to the village of Covenant House. And
It's a pleasure, Mark.
I appreciate it.
I have nothing but high praise for you and Covenant House. You have a wonderful afternoon.
You too.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thanks.
Take care.
Bye-bye. That was Mark Wilcox, outreach liaison from Covenant House, New Jersey. What a wonderful place, a wonderful program. I'm actually somewhat humbled to have them as guests on our show. So I wanted to just follow up on a few things before we close this episode of the Age Out Angels Hour. Before Mark called in, I was telling you about ways that the NEA is possibly recommending to use smartphones in the classroom, and we left off with tip number 5, and there's just one more after that. Tip number 5, if you recall, was to make sure the app is approved. You really do have to be careful, especially when you're working with children, that when you suggest they go somewhere on the web, that it's and you're going to use it in your classroom, that it's approved and part of the curriculum, and make sure you've dotted your I's and crossed your T's when it comes to that. And finally, tip number 6 is let fun foster productivity. As a final tip, Hala suggests being open to letting students have some fun with their devices. He was surprised to discover that his students are quieter and more focused on their assignments when they're allowed to listen to their music during individual classwork, provided they use headphones and the music is not too loud to distract their classmates. It's amazing, he says. The noise level in the classroom actually goes down, and the work output actually goes up when you let youth listen to their music while they're working. Hala asks students to only use sites that stream music. Okay, that's sort of a key there, because every 3 minutes and 12 seconds, you don't want them having to scrounge around through their phone to find the next song that they want to hear. You have to use a music streaming service so they can focus on their work without being distracted. And when it comes time to get back to classroom instruction, Hala simply has students remove their earbuds, put down their phones, and focus on what he's teaching. After all, not all learning can be done digitally. But Hala says that teachers have to adapt to the changing times and find a way to successfully incorporate these devices into their own classrooms. So there's somebody who's actually in the teaching profession, who is bearing me out here and not leaving me hanging on a branch all by myself, thinking that I'm the only person in the world who seems to be in favor of actually incorporating smartphones into the education process and into classroom work. Now, I also did want to say a quick word about the opioid epidemic, because, as you know, I'm railing on a weekly basis, or to anyone who will listen outside of this radio show, against the Sackler family, who made $14 billion misleading doctors into prescribing OxyContin, and thinking that, and they told the doctors that they had research that this was not habit forming. And the Sackler family are the people behind Purdue Pharma that actually markets the drug. And you know how most drug companies are publicly traded companies. Well, this is not. So this is a privately held company, not subject to the same level of transparency as a publicly traded company. And these people made $14 billion doing it. Well, let me tell you something that's happening right now. The states are getting so overstretched and inundated with the financial burdens caused by the opioid epidemic. 500,000 children being displaced across the country. States can't handle it. They don't have the money. The states don't have the money as it is. They didn't have the money to take this on. That what some states are starting to do now is sue the drug companies sort of as a whole. And if you recall, I don't know, maybe it was about 10 years ago or so, when attorneys general from all 50 states sued the tobacco industry, and they got an award of about, I don't know, somewhere between $400 million and $500 million. That's how much they took from the tobacco industry. And they used that for anti-smoking campaigns, which appear to have made a tremendous impact on the reduction of smoking. There are actually some statistics from the state of Florida that show a tremendous percentage-wise reduction in the actual smoking, especially among youth. So Now, I got to be honest with you. I don't know if I agree with this 100% because I don't think every pharma company is guilty of this, and I'm not sure that every pharma company has to pay the burden. And plus, if they put 20 pharma companies together and get $500 million, my thing is let's go after the Sackler family and take their whole $14 billion away. Let's take the entire fortune, the entire $14 billion, and let them be happy that they're not going to jail. But let's take their money and get this job done. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, another hour talking about youth and the problems that they encounter and young people who should just matter more in our political and economic discourse. And they don't matter enough. So we thank you for tuning in, and maybe if you hit that share button, we thank you for helping us spread the word. Please tell your friends. Be here every Thursday night for this broadcast at 8 p.m. And again, we offer humble thanks to Hamilton Radio and to my very special guest, Mr. Mark Wilcox, Outreach Liaison from Covenant House, New Jersey. Join me next Thursday at 8 p.m. The next show will also be taped in advance. I have some very interesting guests and topics related to the child welfare system in our country. So until then, let's make this week the best week ever. Good night.